In this video I'm going to be looking at statutory interpretation, and in particular the literal rule. I'll go over an outline of what this rule involves, some cases, and then look at the advantages and disadvantages of the rule. Before we get started with the literal rule, let's look at what statutory interpretation actually is. So this is where judges give meaning to the words of an act when they are delivering judgment in court. The literal rule is one of 4 methods that judges can use to interpret a statute. According to the literal rule, judges will follow the words used by Parliament exactly, even if the outcome could be unfair. The first case we're going to look at where the literal rule was used is Whiteley versus Chappell. Let's look at the facts of this case. So, someone was accused of impersonating someone to vote in an election. The person who he tried to vote as was dead. The judge looked at the words literally. The accused was not found guilty as the statute referred to people who were entitled to vote, and dead people aren't. Another case where this rule was used was LNER versus Berriman. Employers are liable for widows of workers killed repairing or relaying the train line. A man was oiling the line when he was killed. The employer was not liable as the employee wasn't killed while repairing or relaying. And this particular case illustrates how unfair outcomes can be when the literal rule is used. Now I'm going to look at some advantages and disadvantages of using the literal rule. And this is a topic that comes up quite a lot in the 12-mark questions, along with the advantages and disadvantages of all the other types of statutory interpretation. Starting with the advantages. The rule follows the words used by Parliament, and this prevents unelected judges from making law. It provides certainty, as the law is interpreted exactly as written. It forces Parliament to be clear when wording an act. It respects Parliament's sovereignty, and it respects the separation of powers as judges have minimal legislative function. And then some disadvantages. It assumes that every act will be perfectly drafted. It's not always possible to predict every situation when drafting law. Words may have multiple meanings, and following the words in an act can lead to unfair outcomes, like we saw with the second case we looked at. Here's what a question might look like on this topic. Remember that you can get 8-mark questions and 12-mark questions covering statutory interpretation. What the 8-mark questions will ask is what the type of interpretation involves, and then the 12-marker will be the advantages and disadvantages. Hopefully this video is helpful. Have a nice day.